before confronting this feeling of guilt for putting yourself first, how do you get over the feeling of disappointment and pain for no one putting you first?
Parents that are allowing their children to step up into roles of responsibility, companionship, and parentification because of the absence. You are punishing a child that did not have a say into their existence.
There you go. Don't despise those days of small beginnings, especially if it gives you peace of mind.
In terms of like dealing with the guilt, I ain't gonna lie to you, you might have to make the move before the guilt catches up.
Ooh.
Because hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Renee.
And I'm Courtney, and we are your online sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
Now, we are all about promoting the wellness, growth, and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's episode, we are going to be revisiting a very, very relevant topic for the sisters. Eldest daughter syndrome, baby.
No.
Okay, so there's two people who have recently, well, not recently, like after a couple years ago, left home as eldest daughters of immigrant parents. How do you establish boundaries? How do you flee the nest without feeling guilt? And how do we navigate through eldest daughter syndrome?
Wow.
What's next? Huh?
That's
What's
a deep one.
next?
That's a deep one for
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, very. So, any housekeeping? Any rules? Any announcements?
I guess more so just a reminder of the Vision 22 challenge first and
Oh,
foremost.
yeah.
Ladies, there is still time, about 2 more weeks left to get in those workouts. So
Nice.
even if you've been mad inconsistent the first 2 weeks of October, there is still 2 more weeks to get in 3 workouts in a row in a week.
Yeah.
It can be any days in the week as long as you get them across the week. That's it. It could be a cheeky walk. It could be a pick up a dumbbell. It could be a nice little run.
Yeah.
We just need to see that you've been active at least 3 times per week and you could be in with a chance of winning 100 GBP.
Lit.
Get working, sis.
Nice. I don't know if because we've been putting out pre-recorded episodes, I don't know if we've said thank you for a sold out show yet.
Child, yeah, we got to do it.
Oh, have we done that?
No, I don't think we have.
Okay.
I don't think we have.
A massive thank you for selling out the To My Sisters live show.
Dang.
I don't know if we've said it before. I'm not gonna lie, both of our minds are not fully here today, but we just want to say a massive thank you. This is completely surreal.
Honestly.
I wasn't even aware that the tickets were selling out because I was a bit scared. So I just put my phone on D&D. And then I got a FaceTime from a friend and she was like, congratulations. I said, oh, what? What's going on?
She said you sold out, honey.
She's like, these tickets are just going like that. I said they came out like 13 minutes ago.
Yo, and guys, when we say all the tickets are done, they're done. Like members of our team are standing.
Oh,
they're really standing.
honestly, we cannot say thank you enough. Like, we 4x the capacity for this year's live show and you guys have still packed it out and it's going to be absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
And if you have not seen, listen, let me bring up my mic. So
Assemble.
essentially, right, everything happened so quickly and not that we didn't have time, but we thought we would still be able to announce panelists and that would encourage more of you to buy tickets. But y'all said you're coming for us.
Hello.
As long as we're there, you'll actually be there.
Hello.
Which is crazy in itself. But we announced our panel.
Jeez.
Pursuing your goals with confidence. Okay, we're about to have a panel conversation and the sisters are rolling out for this one. Oh yeah, we have the sisters coming to talk. All right, this ain't just us. The sisters are coming to talk. Let me tell you about the Avengers.
Tell them.
That are coming to assemble on November 12th at Rio Cinema. We have our resident Vixen star.
I literally can't. I actually can't.
Mrs. Lydia. Mrs. Did you hear that? When she was here last, she was a miss. But now she's a Mrs.
Levels have changed.
I'm telling you.
Levels have changed.
Lydia Dingar is going to be on our panel talking about pursuing your goals with confidence. That's what the panel is all about. Yeah. The next,
jeez,
we've reviewed her book.
Oh, child.
Sis is changing the world.
Hell, like literally, like actual, like
changing
change
the world,
maker,
and
like,
that's our sis, V Kativi. Oh, I don't think you know who we're talking about.
It's getting warm.
Someone who UN. I don't know if you've heard, but
some of you guys can't even recite the alphabet to you.
She's
crazy.
Out here. And last but not least,
oh man,
Miss Confidence herself.
Confident and killing it.
What? Tiwa from Confident and Killing It.
Oh God, stop it. Let me pack my bag and be going.
Mazaline. So we've got homeowners, Harvard grads,
Oh, hello.
world changers,
Hello.
authors,
Not to
confidence
mention,
masters.
and that's just the panel.
And the host, the wickedest and the baddest. The hostess with the maestess. She makes a grand return. Mrs. Adela Fardi.
It's a lot.
She's coming to host
I
the
just
whole
want to
event.
say, if you lacked, you lacked sincerely.
And
like we
this
really said
is
Power
actually
Rangers.
the ultimate announcement. Why have you not signed up to the mailing list? You see how you're doing yourself. Some of you were signing up to the mailing list at 11 a.m. Who did you think you were coming to meet at 11 a.m.? Emails had already been sent out, baby.
The tickets, and once tickets are gone, they're gone. And sisters, when we say this is about to be the live show of a lifetime, it really is, because not only do we have panelists, a fantastic host, a wonderful like live podcast recording, but we have all sorts of treats coming up in that live show.
Yeah.
So many big announcements that the ladies that are attending will hear first, like big announcements. 2023, they call it the year of the sisterhood. I hear. So if y'all are sick of us now,
just go
it's
and
gonna
take
be
some
chronic.
antacids
It's
and some
gonna be
Pepto-Bismol
chronic.
already.
It's about to be chronic.
Get your lactase. Bring a brown
All
bag.
you're gonna see, hello, you're just gonna see us. So we
Better
are
be sick of us.
sick.
Yeah.
So look, the next time we have an event,
Honestly be there. But also like to meet everybody.
Yeah, no, we're so
these are
excited.
amazing touch points to actually meet other people, not just, you know, the amazing women we've mentioned or even ourselves, but actually to meet the sisters in the sisterhood who are 10 times as lit, 10 times as awesome, doing amazing things, and who are just amazing people. And we really want you to touch and connect with them and to make friends, people you can go and get dinner with after or lunch after. So please don't lack next time. It's okay. It's all right. There'll be more. Long live the sisterhood. But
man, you know what's really like
Sign
been
up to the mailing
beautiful
list,
about
yeah.
To My Sisters though is a lot of the events that we're doing, we're really seeing friends. Like,
emerge.
like we're really seeing a lot of people
Yeah.
make friends from
Yeah.
this kind of situation. Like we've got girls, especially the girls from like Zanzibar. It fills me with so much joy to see that friendships have continued long after the event. So honestly, in a time where, look, we're heading into winter, it's getting dark and cold, and we're trying to bring some light into the world. So please get plugged into the community now. We're about to like take off. This is take off. We're gathering the girls. It's and not to mention so many housekeeping. Our book is coming out soon.
Oh, guys, they sent us a PDF of our book. Yeah.
Live.
Guys, this book is real. You know, we were typing away, but it was all just faith. This book is actually real. It has a layout. It has a cover. It has dedications. It has a letter of contents, a list of contents.
This book is coming out soon. And look, we just want to let you know when that pre-order link comes out.
Please. This is probably going to be a recurring announcement every week until
we might
the
need
book
to get
is
like
here,
t-shirts
right?
that have the book on the front.
Ordered with the hyperlink and everything. Please, I beg you in the name of God, when that book comes out, no matter where you are, order it. But yeah, the book is coming along and watch this space.
And we just want to say a big shout out to our team at Bluebird, Pan Mac.
man.
You guys are absolutely killing it. Shout outs especially to Mireille.
Mireille,
you're the love of our life.
is mad.
But
Mireille,
love of our life.
talk about rocking for the girls. Because I'm telling you guys, this book would have looked
Somehow.
Everyone came with their creative ideas, but that book would have looked. But Mireille, she fought for us.
Ride or die. So honestly, thank you, Mireille. I think that's about it for the housekeeping.
I guess the rest is just be blessed and prosperous. To the dilemma.
Let's get it.
That is so funny. Hey sisters, my dilemma is that my mother is driving me crazy. I'm a
right in there.
She said, let's get to the point.
Good morning.
No. None of that fancy stuff. This is in need.
Okay, talk to
I'm
me,
a
baby.
firstborn daughter in a brown household led by a single mother. After my parents got divorced, my mother became the primary caregiver, and that was the beginning of hell for me. She doesn't respect my boundaries and expects me to take care of her and my my 2 sisters because according to her, I owe her since she took care of me when I was younger. My mother is 47 and has numerous degrees and diplomas but has no desire to work. I have tried to get her numerous of jobs in her field, but she either doesn't apply for the jobs or doesn't attend the interviews. When I first started working, I had no problem chipping in and helping out with certain bills, including the school fees of my sisters.
Wow.
But as time went by, my mother has just stopped paying any of the bills, including buying groceries, and would expect me to do it. I expressed to her that the bills were too much for me to handle on my own, but her response was always gaslighting me. I'm now at a point where I might have to drop out of uni to keep up with the bills, and she doesn't seem to care. The other thing is that she has been pressuring my boyfriend and I to get married. I've been with my partner for over 3 years and we are planning on moving in together soon. The relationship has been amazing, but we have no desire to ever get married. We both agreed to remain in a relationship without being bound by marriage. My mother knows this and the reason behind our decision, but still keeps insisting we get married. She constantly calls my partner to tell him about it and then even threatens to stop me from seeing him if he doesn't propose. My partner never complains about it, but I can tell that he's bothered by it and I don't know what to do. Please help a sister out.
Damn.
When she said this, I said, "This is the
yeah, I understand.
This is
she
a
did not
multi
say
combo."
it. She really said, "No, good morning." I get it. The morning
Let's
is not
get
good.
straight to
Let's
the
go.
issue.
First of all, sis, I'm so sorry that you're actually going through this kind of situation, and it seems quite dire and quite extreme.
Yeah.
So it might actually necessitate an extreme response. I think my first port of call, and this is from a place of privilege, so we'll kind of like go down the different like sliding scales, I suppose. If you can like move out, or if you can like get into a space that's away from your mother, I highly recommend. I know that not everybody has the capacity to do this, and very much bearing in mind your financial situation right now, contributing to bills and all that kind of stuff. But I would genuinely say, if you can, start planning your escape route, even if it's, you know, renting. You're blessed that you're with your boyfriend. I don't know if you guys can like expedite the process. Maybe that might help. Insofar as just you two moving in together, maybe a little bit sooner than expected, even if it's not like a super nice place. But I do think that some kind of distance, and I mean physical distance, can really help that situation, because as you've kind of like mentioned, you've spoken to her about this numerous times. She's gaslit you, and this is something that's been escalating quite seriously. So I would say plan that escape route, expedite the process, and try and move out if you can.
Yeah.
If that's not something that's possible in the foreseeable future, maybe over the course of the next few months or the next year, it might actually again necessitate some extreme boundaries, which will actually hurt. So it might look like you having to scale back on some of the bills. And I think it also necessitates having conversations with your sisters as well. I think there is a heavy parentification going on. You haven't mentioned much about your father and how much he's contributing. Depending on how active he is, I'll assume that, you know, you have at least a working relationship with him. He needs to be in the picture. He's, you know, she had the kids with him, your sisters, you know what I mean? Not you. So they're not your responsibility. And I know it's hard because you love them, but given the fact that, you know, these are not your children, these are your sisters, you don't have a responsibility to take care of them. That is the duty of care of your parents, especially if your mother has multiple degrees, she's capable of working. It might actually be indicative of some kind of like mental health issue that she might be going through. So if so, that might be the case of, you know, treading carefully and perhaps having conversations, which is less so around these are my boundaries, respect them, and more so trying to understand, okay, cool. Are you actually okay as a woman? Like, what's been going wrong with you? How are you feeling? Because I ain't gonna lie to you, if she's out here treating you like parent of these sisters, then you got to sit down and level to her and be like, yo, babe, what's up? Like, why are you not contributing to any of these bills, and why is the, you know, responsibility falling heavily on me? So I would encourage you to have those conversations with your mother if you can. Try to start that engagement with your father where you can. That might also lead to a dead end, but I think exploring all options as much as possible is important. And try and figure out what that situation is insofar as him contributing to your sister's school fees, their groceries, their upkeeps. Knock, knock, we're at your door, baby daddy. Come and pay for your kids. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very unfortunate situation, but I do think it necessitates those really sticky, awkward conversations. And I won't say that it's going to be great in the beginning. It might actually hurt a lot, and it might feel like you might feel really uncomfortable. But I definitely encourage that. And where your partner is concerned, again, I think a little bit of distance. I know it's awkward that your mother is out here calling him, telling him to marry you and all that kind of stuff. But I think just making it clear both to your partner and then to your mother that these are two very distinctive relationships, and your responsibility to your partner is not the same as your responsibility to your mother. And I think having that kind of like distance, again, maybe like moving in with him a little bit sooner, or having those conversations and trying to be a bit more distant will really, really help, because what you don't want is your relationship with your mother to end up spoiling the relationship that you have with your partner. That would be very, very unfortunate. So have the conversation with him, reassure him that, you know, this is the situation you're dealing with. It's a little bit toxic at the moment. I require your patience and support, but I very much love you and I want to pursue this with you. And please try not to allow, you know, her constant nagging and, you know, the issues that she's dealing with herself, to affect our relationship. And then have the conversation with your mother. These are your boundaries, right? Like, she has absolutely no right to tell you what you want to do with your partner. She can suggest and she can advise, but insofar as like pressure is concerned, and I think that's something that a lot of folks actually deal with, you know, parents being quite overbearing, or especially being like an eldest daughter, it can feel as though because you're the breadwinner, there's that like pressure to now go and get married or like go and get additional income and additional support, right? It's not even necessarily about like you love this person, you should get married, but more so I've seen exactly resources and opportunities. So these are all conversations that I do think that you should have. And then the last thing that I'll say is, of course, community is really important, and I think very, very specific communities as well, right? So definitely thinking about mental health for your mother, trying to get her plugged into those kind of communities. For yourself, finding communities, obviously to my sisters is one of them. A great community I've come across recently is Home Girls Unite. It's specifically for eldest daughters, and there's a lot of women that are dealing with similar issues there. So shout out to you guys for doing that important work. Absolutely love what you're doing. And they can also provide lots of support, further resources that are specific to the issues that you're dealing with. But yes, it's a sticky situation, and it's going to be a very bumpy road to resolution. But I think if you stick to your guns and stick out the way, you'll come out on the other side.
For sure.
But yeah, that was my very long-winded answer.
No, I think you actually covered everything. I think that's spot on. I think if you've established boundaries and your mother can't respect them, then what can we do going forward but to just be like, okay, now we just have to enforce some kind of distance. And that is never pretty. Enforcing distance is never cute, especially with somebody who is used to overstepping your boundaries. And it feels like, especially when you're an eldest daughter, and in this case you have two sisters, it feels like there are so many people riding on you maintaining the peace or simply going with the status quo in this situation. However, it's actually quite dangerous and it will only get worse. And so I think it's important for you to be like, you know what, you're grown, like you're actually 47. And I like that you mentioned the mental health aspect, but if she doesn't want to pursue help and it doesn't even seem like there's, you know, a massive mental health issue at play here. Not that I want to be insensitive to that, because a lot of these things are not visible. However, at the same time, if you cannot acknowledge that something is going on and you cannot work on it and you cannot verbalize that, we have to go on the assumption that to a degree, nothing's wrong. Do you get what I mean? And so I think it's important to say, you know, you're 47 years old, you have qualifications, you are able to work. You not wanting to work, your children are going to starve. I'm so sorry. I know, like, in my compassion, and I'll be giving my siblings money, you know, siphoning the money behind the scenes.
For sure.
But you have to put in her face the reality that I'm going to step away from this position. I'm not, like you said, I'm not their parent. And so figure it out, you know. And I think that pressure, and I think this is actually similar to a dilemma we've received before, but I think that sort of pressure of saying, you know what, I'm going to step back and sink or swim. I think a lot of people will actually step up to the plate because there's no longer an opportunity for them to take advantage. And so taking away that option of being like, you know what, I'm not going to be the one who supports you guys anymore, by moving out if you can, or by just stopping, you know. But I do think the whole just stopping thing may be a bit more complicated, because then it could come with some serious consequences and repercussions, and we don't know how crazy your mum can be, and only you know that. And so I think it's important to still do that with wisdom, but it may be worth just doing a slow cutting off of what you make available when it comes to the contributions you're making to the household, this situation may not end prettily. I think the likelihood is it's actually going to be quite ugly. And I don't wish that on you, but I just think that's going to be the reality of the situation if you want to put yourself first. Your mum's not going to like it. And I love that you pulled up, go and find the father of those children. Go and find your mum's ex-husband and be like, yo, what's going on? Because this isn't just on your mum, right? And your mum's going to have so many different feelings towards your dad surrounding their divorce. But your dad still has a responsibility. If he's your father or your sibling's father, they still have a responsibility over making sure that you guys are actually okay. And it's not okay for him to have just abandoned and abdicated that responsibility. And I think a lot of times when we talk about eldest daughter syndrome, it can be about the toxicity that exists between eldest daughters and their mothers, but their mothers are oftentimes under a lot of pressure. This situation hasn't been handled well, but sometimes the mothers are under a lot of pressure because we don't talk enough about the invisible fathers or the fathers that just go kind of scot-free. And so I think it's important for you to, if you can, go and pull up this guy and be like, yo, hey, money, and that's just the reality of the situation. And if you have family members who can also just be like, yo, this is actually what's happening and this is not right, and who will be able to advocate for you or talk some sense to your parents, that may also be really, really helpful. But it may just come down to, yo, I need to take a step back. And that step back looks like moving out. It looks like moving in with my partner. And I love that you mentioned that, okay, if you don't want to get married to your partner and your mother cannot respect that, there may need to be some distance that you put between your mother and your relationship and her ability to have so much of a say that affects you guys. People can say what they want, but the question is, are you hearing them? Do you get what I mean? And so you may need to actually put distance between you to be able to not hear her opinion anymore when it comes to that matter. And that may actually look like moving out. That may actually look like you and your partner moving in together. And I know you said that this is something that you actually plan to do. And like you said, maybe expedite the process. And it may not look cute at first. It may not be, the most lavish and most ideal of them all. But if you both can make yourselves ready and you feel like you can commit to each other in that way, then do it. But if you can't move in with your partner, go and look for maybe a flat share or a house share or, a room. Look for something that is like affordable for you in this situation. And baby girl, do not drop out of this university. 100%. Let me tell you right now, okay, I know it's probably going to be difficult and you're paying your sister's school fees and you're probably paying your uni fees or whatever. Put yourself first. Your future is really on the line. Trust me, your sisters will be okay. Your mother cannot be so wicked. And I'm not trying to be so judgmental of her because I don't know, but I would like to think that she's not wicked enough to watch your younger sisters suffer because you decided that you weren't going to suffer. She's still your mother. And so I do think that if you let this university thing go, you're going to have a level of resentment and pain that will be so hard to undo. A simple 15-minute answer in a dilemma will not solve that issue. Therapy may not even solve that issue. Baby girl, if you do that, that's a dark hole that impacts the rest of your future. Now, there's nothing that you can't come back from, right? However, just don't go on that road in the first place. And so if it is, you are being pushed to a point where it's like, well, I'm going to have to drop out of uni. I'm going to do not do that. Do not do that thing. Get people around you who can help you and support you. But put yourself first. Really and truly in this situation, you may need to put yourself first because your future relies on this for real. Like for real. So if you can, I know it's easier said than done. And like we said, we're coming from a relative place of privilege and we don't know your background and your life circumstances. However, if you can stick it out and finish that degree, stick it out and finish that degree. Yeah.
Man,
it's tough.
It's really tough, man.
It's tough. And that's why I wanted to have this whole conversation. Since we hope that answer actually helped you in some way, the sisters will definitely give you advice down in the the comment section, from their, wealth of life experiences and backgrounds and perspectives. And so sisters, please drop your answers and your suggestions and your advice and wisdom in the comments down below. Please, let's help our sister out. Let's do that. If you're listening to the podcast on all streaming platforms where you've rated us 5 stars, then you can definitely come and talk to us on YouTube, where we convene after the service.
That was so good.
So, yeah, You
That
already know
was
the
so
deal.
good.
I mean,
That was so
yeah.
To be fair, the sisters have been holding it down. I
saw our reviews. I said, firstly, we nearly on 2,000 reviews. Sorry, Spotify.
Hello. In fact, Spotify.
Yeah.
If y'all are listening.
Okay. No. You. Yeah. Go on.
If you guys are listening, we're doing something special here.
Hi. Hey. Spotify.
Good
YouTube.
morning.
Google. Anyone with money that is listening. Meta. Mark.
I know you see those.
Jeff. Bill. Oprah.
No.
Tyler Perry. Somebody.
Oh, not Tyler. He gonna have us out here wigs. Those wigs.
We be wearing wigs anyway.
No, but the wigs that he'll have us out. No.
No, but Tyler.
If you guys are listening, please, SOS.
Hello. Jordan Peele.
This sisterhood has been great, and as you can see, we got a
King
lot
Charles,
of folks.
Liz Truss, somebody listening to this podcast.
Oh my god,
Captain Marvel. I need somebody
at this rate. Even if you just work at these places, shall be advocating. We need support. You know, we need support.
If you don't laugh, you'll actually cry. It's actually not that bad because the sisters have been rocking with us, and for a self-funded sisterhood, like, you guys have kept this thing running completely, right? And there are pros and cons. And to be fair, like, as a community, we can actually talk about this because this is not related to this episode whatsoever. I know 5 of you already
timestamps,
skipping.
that timestamps, they will be like,
but it may be worth having a conversation about ownership and the sisterhood because right now we own 100% of everything. Obviously, there's the community investment and you guys are invested as people. But in terms of like equity, we own everything to do with To My Sisterhood. Yeah. It has all been self-funded and now it's running as its own organism, which is actually really nice. And like, we are so grateful. I don't think we've mentioned that before, but like, To My Sisters can sustain itself when it comes to finances. And that's purely because of your support. There are different pros and cons of getting other organizations involved, especially when it comes to not just being a community and not just being a brand, but actually being a place of social impact and actually wanting to equip women with resources, be charitable and be so much more, helping you guys find friendship, like so much more than just a podcast. It takes money, but also there are consequences to taking money for doing that. So it may be worth having a conversation because we are not dictators. We actually want your input. And you know, we've ran businesses before, but we ain't Bill Gates, you know.
Hello. You know what? Maybe at some point we do like a live or something. Yeah. And we just have like one open conversation and chat with the sisters. Yeah. So we ain't done a live in a minute. But it would be good to get folks' thoughts around like ownership. Yeah. Obviously we are due to take our like annual leave
very soon,
very soon. So watch out the grab. We're about to populate some stuff where we actually have a time where we come together and think about the vision and the direction and the future of To My Sisters. And obviously we've got so much in store for 2023, but this is something that we want to do for the long term. And we very much want this to be a community oriented vision. As Courtney stated, social impact is really at the heart of what we do. Yeah. We're still currently working on some of the initiatives that we started in Tanzania, as well as thinking about in the long term, what does it look like to have, experiences for women, and how we can continue to invest in, community. So for us, it's very important that you guys have your say as to how we build that and what is the most sensible, route, because whilst we are very much looking for support, we also want to make sure that it's the right type of support, which is why we're very selective about, the kind of partnerships we take, the people that we work with. We don't ever want to, I guess, sell out in the sense of we don't want to betray our sense of community and responsibility that we have to you guys. Exactly, the vision. So I think we'll revisit this conversation and come to you guys and have like maybe a live or like an open forum where we talk about the sisterhood.
For real. Yeah, we know that some of you have found the timestamp where the show is officially starting. Shout out to all of you who have rocked with us in the pre-show. But so why were we talking about that? Because all of you who are listening to this podcast, please come over and, thank you for rating us 5 stars, but come over and leave a comment on YouTube as well and subscribe whilst you're here. When it comes down to like eldest daughter syndrome, we've spoken about this and a whole episode before, and definitely that episode is really the main context of this one. But I did want to say, if you could, because you are a resident researcher, you know, our professor, could you give a little backdrop to eldest daughter syndrome and what we mean when we say that?
So eldest daughter syndrome is typified by this idea that due to very specific family dynamics, the eldest daughter stands as proxy for a parent. It may be in genuine like proxy, as in your parent is absent. It may be a mother, it may be a father, or they may be absent in another way that's intangible, so emotionally or financially or physically. There's also the element of culture that can play into eldest daughter syndrome, where, you know, folks that may come from specific cultures have this notion that eldest daughters should be like the mini mothers. And I can't lie, patriarchy also plays into eldest daughter syndrome, in the sense that as the mini mom or as the up and coming, you know, female child that's first, you have to subsume these roles as potential future wife or potential mini mother or potential caregiver to your, you know, younger siblings. And I think what's very interesting about eldest daughter syndrome is that it operates even in the presence of an older sibling that may be a male. So there may be, you know, some of you that may have older brothers, for example, but are still feeling the weight of eldest daughter syndrome because you are perceived to be the primary, or rather the secondary or immediate next caregiver. So that's kind of like the, I guess, technical dealings with like eldest daughter syndrome. The way that it manifests, I think the dilemma was actually a really great backdrop as to one of the ways that it can manifest, and that's just the subsuming responsibilities that are not yours to carry. So it may be financial responsibilities where you are taking care of your siblings financially or taking care of even your parents financially. It may be in the form of emotional provision. So you may be seen as more of a friend to your parents than as, you know, their child. And you may come across as quite motherly, or need to come across as quite motherly to your siblings, especially when there's kind of like a generational divide. So if, you know, your parents are not familiar with the culture, if you're like a first generation migrant family, for example, and your parents are not necessarily familiar with the culture, that can create a divide, and you become the secondary mother or like caregiver because you're more well versed and aware. So those are some of the ways that it can also manifest. Of course, there's other ways as well, and this is not to deny, before anyone comes for us and like, oh, but that's not the only experience, you know. You know, it happens.
We just don't know everything. It's okay.
Oh, thank you. I was going to give a whole disclaimer while I'm calling you like, yeah, we just don't. So that's some of the ways that eldest daughter syndromes can manifest. And I think what's really dangerous about eldest daughter syndrome is left unchecked or left unresolved, it just becomes a repetitive cycle. Yeah. So it's very, very common for eldest daughters to then have the same kind of disdain for their children or re-perpetuate that cycle. So you'll find that for a lot of folks that may have, you know, grown up in cultures where eldest daughters are subsumed as, you know, the secondary mother, they then do the same to their children, especially when it's left unchecked. Or it may lead to some kind of real serious resentment towards their existing family. So we've had, you know, I'm talking real resentment to your siblings because then they've effectively become your children. Real resentment towards either present or physically absent parents, and it can be quite destructive. I think in other ways it can manifest over independence. Now that, you know, you have literally nobody to come to and you are the person that everyone comes to, you can feel as though the burden of, you know, having to deal with everybody else's BS means that you need to be independent and you struggle to, you know, foster relationships with other people because you think that everybody is going to be predatory to your resources. So that's a little bit about eldest daughter syndrome. And I think it's definitely something that at least both me and Courtney resonate insofar as our actual lived experiences as eldest daughters. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for giving that background and that context. And I think that was mainly the conversation we had in that last podcast episode. So if you haven't had a listen, go and have a listen. A lot of us sisters united over that episode. And it's like one of the ones that people come up to me and they're like, that episode? And I'm like, yeah, that was the one. But the question now is, well, beyond that point, now that we've all kind of identified that, okay, this is something that we can relate to,
what do we do beyond that point? And it's funny, I was having a conversation with my friend Nubuke, listener of the podcast, YouTube extraordinaire. She was saying how, she loves the podcast, and now the question when she listens to most of the episodes is, we've all connected over these common feelings, but now what, right? I think the thing with eldest daughter syndrome, even beyond before we get to this point of saying, do this, set boundaries, how do you move out? How do you leave your household and your siblings without guilt? I think even before confronting this feeling of guilt for putting yourself first, how do you get over the feeling of disappointment and pain for no one putting you first, right? How do you actually get over that?
Well, there's various stages. I think first and foremost, when we're thinking about like the practical steps, I think it can be, as you said, quite easy to kind of say, this is how you move out, this is what we're going to do to kind of like all that kind of stuff. But dealing with the actual emotional burden and the deep trauma that comes from having to be a caregiver, having to be responsible, and having to put yourself first when nobody else has put you first, especially when there's no blueprint for it, takes a very long time. Exactly. Takes over. I don't have like a 10-step. I can give you some suggestions, but I don't. And I want to make it very clear that your 10 steps will look different depending on where you're at. Yeah. And I also want you guys to really like not get too frustrated with yourself if your healing isn't very, very linear.
There we go.
Because I think sometimes you hear these kind of things and you identify them and you're like, great, I'm going to go on this journey of putting myself first. But it's hard. And it means that you have to wake up every single day and decide, I'm going to put myself first.
Facts.
And as somebody that's like, we're both Christians here, and part of the faith, not even part of the faith, the entirety of the faith rests on the choices that we make every single day. The choice to renew your mind daily, constantly, to meditate on the word. And I think when it comes to dealing with healing, that kind of approach, that kind of framework is necessary, because healing doesn't come, straight away. It doesn't always come straight away, especially when there's very deep roots to it.
Exactly.
So every single day you have to wake up and say to yourself, I'm going to put myself first, and these are the ways that I'm going to do it. It might not look the same every single day. So for me, for example, I'm a big journaler. I love journaling. I love like writing down my emotions and my feelings, because that's often the way that I articulate myself best. So find the way that you articulate yourself best. It could be journaling, it could be speaking, it could be just something to allow yourself to identify the emotions that you're feeling on a daily basis, keep a log of it, and then the decision to put yourself first, well, how are you going to do that on a daily basis? So when you're confronted with those decisions and those moments where, as an eldest daughter, trauma would dictate your response, now that you've committed to healing, you have to make the choice to switch over. Yeah. So, there will be a day where, your sibling is struggling and is coming to you for money again. It might be like the third day in a row. At some point, you have to say, look, if I'm putting myself first, I have to do the uncomfortable thing of, I've supported you for, X amount of time. I need you to get on your feet. And I'm going to support you to do it, but I can't support you in this way, because it means that I have to minimize myself and my feelings. And I can't do that anymore because it's actually causing my trauma. Yeah. So that's like a real practical example, right? I think it really does mean that you also have to confront the fact that you have very low self-esteem if you don't put yourself first. And I think with a lot of like folks where, you've had to take on that responsibility by virtue of somebody else being absent or just different family dynamics, we can often think that because we take on that responsibility, we're important. But that means we're actually equating our self-worth with that responsibility. Yeah. So when we do shrug it off, it becomes weird, uncomfortable, and suddenly you're kind of like, oh my God, insecure, because a lot of your identity has rested in how much you can provide for someone, even though it wasn't your mantle to take up in the first place. So you also have to do the work of divorcing this idea of the self with how much you can provide in a role that was never yours in the first place. And then I also think there's a lot of merit to defining what your new role will be. I think also in terms of like undoing trauma and undoing the ways in which being an eldest daughter can often manifest, outside of being an eldest daughter, who are you? Have you defined that? Have you actually sat down and said, okay, cool, aside from being so-and-so's sister, so-and-so's daughter, because again, that's what we hear as eldest daughters. You're my daughter. Even the phrasing that killed me was the whole, you owe me. I'm gonna say something real controversial to a lot of aunties out there. When you make the conscious decision to bring a child into this world,
I don't owe you nothing.
it is your responsibility to look after that child.
I do not owe you
It
nothing.
is your responsibility, both of you, both parents, right? Because it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And just because one parent has abdicated their responsibility does not mean that you can use the child that was the product of that tango as proxy for that absence. You cannot do that. It's a really and look, the single mothers, the single fathers out there that are holding down the fort, because I definitely know that there are some folks that are really holding it down, that are shining examples of single parents in the face of adversity, absence, all that kind of stuff. But for the parents that are allowing their children to step up into roles of responsibility, companionship, and parentification because of the absence, you are punishing a child that did not have a say into their existence.
There you go.
And it causes such deep trauma and pain to a child who now doesn't have an identity that they were never allowed to be children in the first place. So defining your role might actually be something more of, I was actually once a child.
Yeah.
And I need to do some childlike things.
Exactly.
Discover your childhood passions. Discover your inner child. Take the time to actually do things for the sake of doing them without the sense of responsibility defining your identity. Who are you outside of your responsibilities? Who are you outside of who you have to take care of? Who are you outside of this false responsibility that has been put on your shoulders from God knows how long, and you know, from God knows how when you came into the world, how young you were. Who are you outside of that? Once you've defined your role, live that every day. Choose to live that every day. I've really rambled on, but
that was excellent. And that was spot on. Like, that was so spot on. And I think reconnecting with the fact that you are a priority and you have to make yourself a priority. You need to find yourself looking at life through the lens of, I can no longer deprioritize my feelings and my emotions and keep learning to sacrifice for the sake of everybody else. And I think it's interesting because when, you know, parents parentify their children, oftentimes they expect from them the responsibility and the maturity that they fail to show. And it's easy to expect that of other people and to not live up to it yourself. But the point of the matter is, you are not a parent yet. These are not your children, right? And we have, you know, we are our sister's keepers, we are our brother's keepers, whatever. But there is only so much that we can do in the role of brother or sister, because we are not your parent. That element of giving you identity cannot come from us. And when there is that displacement, when you appear, because that's what you are, when you appear, have to give identity to somebody else, you lose yours. You actually do not understand anymore who you are, and you're stepping into responsibilities that you were not graced for. And I think that leads to a whole bunch of exhaustion. It leads to a whole bunch of burnout. And so the first thing I would say is, if you're trying to start with this process of like, okay, putting myself first, setting boundaries, the first thing you need to do, baby girl, is rest. You actually need to breathe. You have been in a place of tension for so long, holding your breath, using your last dime to make sure that everything has been kept together. And you've been doing it at the expense of your own emotional well-being, of your own mental health, of your own feeling of safety and security. You need to exhale. You have been waiting to exhale. You need to exhale. And a lot of us don't. We don't take that, because then the realities of adulting kick in, right? And it's like, you can't exhale because of living crisis, and go and move out, and, you know, you're moving in with your partner or whatever. Like, responsibilities are coming at you hard and fast, and the world tells you, don't be a kid. You can't be a kid anymore. And it's like, but I was never a kid in the first place. I've never been a kid, right? So take time to rest. And that could look like, you know, doing the whole slow, soft life, whatever. It could look like, you know, taking yourselves on the solo trips and doing the whole radical Stella got her groove back kind of thing. Or it can also be just taking time to go to therapy, or just sitting in your room and breathing, and just having times in your day, every day. I love that you emphasize that, every day, to just decompress. And even if it's like, and a lot of these things can manifest in your body, even if it's just taking time to stretch, taking time to sit and collect your thoughts, taking time to write, taking time to cry. Even if you're not a crier, taking time to shout. Whatever it is, find a space, even a person who will give you the room to decompress and just exhale. And that could be friends, that could be sisters. And this is why friendship is actually so important, because you need somebody who doesn't have those expectations of you to mother them or to provide for them, or just to be you, right? And going and finding that safe space in that friendship to be able to just let it all out, and just breathe is important. And I think that's why so many of us just feel tired, so young and yet so tired. And it's like, yo, we have to rest. We actually have to rest in order to heal. Lay your head down somewhere, please. Please. So yeah, there's that. And I think the second thing when it comes to trying to forgive the people that let you down is acknowledging that they actually let you down, and maybe having that conversation with them that, hey, I feel let down. And some parents are not open to having that kind of conversation. And I'm not going to be, stupid and say just bring it up anyway, because sometimes that could have serious repercussions. And some parents still have belts in their closets that they will happily fling at your head no matter how old you are. And that's a whole different level of toxicity we need to address in certain communities. However, I do think it's important to, if you can have that conversation, just be like, you know what, I know maybe this was not your intention, but this is actually how I feel. But if you have parents that don't want to listen, at least have that conversation with yourself. I think sometimes we avoid having conversations or even acknowledging that certain topics need to be addressed in our lives because we know that the person who actually needs to be addressed won't hear. But the question is, are you even ready to say, right? Are you even ready to have actually reconciled or come to grips with the fact that this has actually happened to you, and these are the emotions that have happened as a consequence? You feel rejected, you feel alone, you feel like no one has ever been there for you. These are all issues which, whether you express them or not, they are inside of you, hun. They are inside of you, babes. Confront those. Even if you cannot confront the person, confront those emotions. And that can come, again, journaling, therapy, talking to friends, talking to people who have been in similar experiences, who you can bounce off of and can make you realize, actually, yeah, this is actually how I feel. And then you work accordingly. And sometimes you just have to forgive people, but you don't have to stay in their presence, and you don't have to allow the relationship to remain in the same state. And that kind of brings us to the conversation of, okay, once you've done that personal healing, once you've had that time of rest and you've confronted the fact that this is how being an eldest daughter who has been parentified or allowed to be taken advantage of or exploited has made me feel, how do you then flee the nest with guilt? Now, this is a huge, if you are an eldest daughter, let me just give this disclaimer. We are not saying that fleeing the nest is the only option to get yourself out of a toxic or dysfunctional dynamic with your parents. We are firm believers in healing, reconciliation, all of that. I think family relationships can easily be repaired. And before I moved out of my home, where I live with my mum and my sister, there was a lot of reconciliation and healing that took place. However, I've been seeing a lot of the girls on the internet talk about how amazing it is to, at least for a while, have that period of just being an independent young woman who isn't married, but isn't living in her parents' house, is just doing her. And of course, it comes with, needing to have the resources to be able to do that. And not everybody can, but I do think it's a valuable time to be able to have, if you can have it. But yeah, I just wanted to give that disclaimer that we're not saying you're an eldest daughter, run out of the house right now, take your keys, take your shoes, because there is no bed in you for you to sleep here. We said this couch can be for 48 hours. After that, either we are filing a missing persons report or you gotta go home. I'm sorry.
She said there's a 48-hour expiration date on this here couch.
Yeah. But with that being said, how do you go about leaving the nest, I guess, from a practical point of view as well, but also and how do you deal with the feelings of guilt that may arise in putting yourself first that?
I'll start with the practical stuff, and then I'll go on to the guilt. In terms of practical stuff, I think one of the biggest contributors to the manifestation of like eldest daughter syndrome is loneliness on the part of our parents. And I think that their over investment in this family structure, this family dynamic, has actually hindered them from doing a lot in their own time. I think that for us as eldest daughters in this time, we actually have the opportunity to change that story. So in terms of like practicalities, if you are trying to flee the nest, you need community and you need sisters. Yo, I could not have been out here by myself without Courtney.
Well, you were though.
I was, but even, I mean, let me
you were.
I mean, this place is nice. where I was before was okay. This is nice. This is lavish. This is like, you know, when people come over, oh my God, your house is nice. I was like, thank you. I live here with Courtney. But even that, like thinking about like house shares or thinking about like roommates and stuff like that, it's actually made easier if you actually group together or bunch together with people that you actually like.
Yeah.
And I know that people will say, oh, you know, like I can't live with my friend, she's crazy, or like I can't live with my friend at ETC.
We need to do a whole episode on that. Sorry, this episode is full of tangents. So many people are really confused at the fact that like Renee and I have lived together for over a year. We've been friends for nearly 10 years, right? We don't fight. Like are y'all just... Did you have no home training or something?
The issue has got to be some of you guys.
Do you get what I mean?
Because
now, don't get me wrong. It's not that everything's perfect all the time and we're just here slumber party every night. We're two human beings with lives. But also it's like, why do people think that female friendship and female proximity has to be filled with so much drama and tension? That's a whole episode in itself. But
honestly, that is a whole episode. I do think that what does contribute to it though is this whole notion that we shouldn't be working on these relationships. Like we should just come together and things should be perfect. Whereas if it was a romantic relationship, everyone's like, oh, you got to work to define proximities and boundaries. I think what's actually worked so well for us is we've been upfront from the get-go. If I'm tired or if Courtney's tired, she's tired, she needs her space. Do you know what I mean? And like, trust in the fact that you know your friends and you've actually built in that intimacy to be able to like pick up cues or like start to understand. And I think one thing that's actually I've been more so relearning and really re-understanding is this whole notion of servanthood and having a servant mindset when it comes to the relationships that you do have. And I'm not saying be a doormat, but it's more so how can I serve this person today? And having two people come together and say, look, I'm trying to serve you, you're trying to serve me, especially in friendship. There won't be passa, or if there is conflict and passa, the priority is servitude. So I do think that even in thinking about practicalities, I want to move out. It might be a partner, it might be a friend, it might be a group of friends coming together and saying, you know what, rental prices right now are mad, but if there's three of us tackling this at the same time, then the price decreases a little bit. So maybe colleagues maybe start having the conversations around what are my best feasible options, because you don't actually have to stay at home if you don't want to. Granted, it's quite expensive, cost of living crisis, etc. However, there are options. There are house shares. There are flat shares. There are friends. If you don't have friends, it's now time to be making friends ASAP.
If not, tap into that boss babe content. I'm telling you, step your money up, because as much as, and don't be discouraged, because I think a lot of people will have this desire of like, I want to move out, but obviously the news and everything, which is very real, the economic crisis globally is very real. But do not be discouraged. People are still, and you can see evidence of it in the Sisterhood Come to That Pursue Your Goals with Confidence panel. People are still buying houses. They're still making investments. They're still growing their income. They are still helping each other as well. And there's so much value in pooling your resources together. And that's a huge element of sisterhood as well. The advancement that comes with having the ability to pool your resources together with another woman who needs what you have and you need what she has as well. It can take you far. So don't be discouraged. You could still do it in this time. You're probably not going to be able to do it in the way that you envisioned, which is why I brought up the whole you were living by yourself before you lived with me. A lot of us see ourselves stepping into these really luxury, like high-end apartments, and it's like, girl, you might have to live in the one room. And you know what, like, we're living in this generation where everything has to be super lavish, you know, and like, you know, the first place I move into is the place I'm going to buy, or the first place I move into is going to be this lovely new place. Some of us are going to be moving into, most of us are going to be moving into normal houses with normal wallpaper, no marble. The wallpaper might not even
be nice.
Do you get what I mean? Like, it's not going to be that. And a lot of our parents started that way. And it's like, you can create a good life from those humble beginnings, right? Don't despise those days of small beginnings, especially if it gives you peace of mind. For sure. So I definitely recommend pooling your resourcing, maybe start down a peg, you know, and really get to grips with just being an independent person. I think also what's really pivotal, especially if you're moving out for the first time, having to deal with bills that are actually just yours. Or like having to deal with the whole, okay, I'm paying rent for myself and I'm looking after myself and I'm, you know, what does it take to maintain me? I think a lot of us don't have a notion of that because we are so used to taking care of other people in a very specific context. One like random example I can give is like when I
I started living by myself, I had no idea what portion sizes to make for myself because I was so used to just making food for like a family. So, and I realized this is not financially expedient, and I'm actually one person, so it's fine for me. Meal prep has changed my life because I'm just like, okay, cool, I can make food for myself right now. That's cool. So even little things like that where you actually get the opportunity to be independent but within community, I definitely recommend. And of course, if you are a babe that's a high earner and you can afford your apartment by yourself, then do your thing, babe. Sorry, is that you, baddie? But equally, if you're in a financial position where it's a bit difficult, house shares, flat shares, those kind of stuff, we might even have to start a little thread in TMS or something of like different countries, and then like folks that are looking for rooms and stuff like that. So on the practical side, those are the kind of things that you could do. And then if you can't flee the nest like immediately, I would definitely recommend, if you have at least the budget for it, going on like mini breaks and stuff like that, or going on like excursions that allow you to take yourself out of the house where you can. If you have like a partner or a friend that allows you to like crash at their place for a couple of days, or if you have any like family members that have already moved out that you can stay with for a couple of days, that can also help like jumpstart just your vision and your thoughts around like moving out and stuff like that. So creating those elements of distance, physical distance, is super important. In terms of like dealing with the guilt, I ain't gonna lie to you, you might have to make the move before the guilt catches up. Because if you wait for your guilt to subside, I think that when you're in close proximity with an issue, the issue is highlighted. It's in bold, italics, everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like, picture a crack on like the wall across from us where we're recording, right? I can barely see it because I'm far away. But if I am close to it, like my face is really here and the crack is here, I can see it all the time. It's gonna bother me because it's in my like. And I'm definitely the kind of person, and I think you're the kind of person where when there's a problem nearby or when there's an issue in like your line of sight, it's there. Processed it, it's there. The thing about guilt, when you're in close proximity, and just emotions in general, but negative emotions, when you are in close proximity with the issue at hand, the guilt will not subside unless you are proactively facilitating resolution. Even then, the guilt will still be there. So I genuinely am a believer of sometimes you actually have to do something drastic and then allow the distance from the situation to give you the sight, the space, and the opportunity to really reflect and really think about it and really allow those emotions to settle. It's like staying in a heightened state for pretty much all of the time. You never have that peace of mind or just that opportunity to move away from it. So I think definitely start with the proximity stuff and trying to get away and get like some kind of distance. It might not be like sustained physical distance. Again, it might take you a while to like move out, and it might take you a while to gather your things. But when you do have the moments to yourself, the long walks, when you do have the excursions, when you do go out with your friends, take that as an opportunity to really focus on being present, enjoying yourself, being with your friends, with your community. Take that as an opportunity to really distance yourself from that guilt. And also rest in the fact that you really do need to affirm yourself that this is not your responsibility. Affirm. That might need to be your affirmation. You might need to write it down. You might need to get a hoodie. We might start a hoodie line of just affirmations. This is not my responsibility. It is not. There's some sisters that are listening to this right now that the burden, the overwhelming stench of false, because it's a stench of the aroma, okay, of false responsibility is hanging out. It's like shackles on their legs, like you know, like heaven forgive me, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Some of you guys be walking like that because broke. Your back is just humped over from responsibilities that you were never meant to carry. It's like going to the gym without practicing and then trying to squat 100 kg. That thing will fold you so quickly. You'll be out here looking like a prawn. Sit with the fact, like genuinely affirm yourself. This is not my responsibility. It is not. It is not your responsibility, especially when you are not to be held accountable for decisions that you did not make. So if you are in an environment or circumstance, especially within a family dynamic, and your primary caregivers have made some ill-informed because we do have to, even thinking about parents, and even me thinking about like us looking ahead as potential parents, there is a weightiness to the decisions that we make, especially concerning our family. Obviously, you know, sometimes things happen and things don't go to plan. But when conscious decisions are made and they don't go to plan, the circumstances that arise when they are not of your doing, you need to shirk off responsibility. Even when we say like, look, we talked about like generational trauma and stuff like that. I think that some people internalize that as, I have to be the person that just everywhere brings up my family by their britches. I will break generational. I'm holding it like this. I'm breaking the chains of generational trauma. You can't do that.
Not on your own.
As you cannot do that on your own. Generational trauma is generational it's been building. And if you take that by yourself, it's like standing at the edge of a beach looking at you know what it reminds me of? You know the disappearing islands?
Yeah.
It's like,
oh my God.
For context, when we are the Zanzibaris will be listening to this.
Even praise God that we are here with you today.
We could have folded too, guys.
Woo.
We could have folded.
I just wanted to make it known that Renee abandoned me on the disappearing island.
I was scared. No, girl, because I'm not a strong swimmer.
I hear
actually
it.
a stronger swimmer. I was like, okay, she gonna be fine.
Yo, one day we'll actually tell this full story, but imagine standing on an island where the water just keeps coming higher and higher, and they're tending people in boats in batches, and the prerequisite to be left on the island is who can swim and who's tall. I am both of those things. Why am I relegated to last?
Baby, when they says who can swim, I said swim well. Because we're in the middle of the ocean. Because guys, it's not even that we're like we can see the shore.
No. We're
shore.
in the middle
it's
of
the
the
middle
ocean.
of the ocean.
No,
you know, salty. Like there's some seafaring creatures around us.
We're in the middle of the ocean.
Dealing with generational trauma is like standing on that disappearing island and thinking that you can somehow simultaneously bring the shore back up by yourself.
Yeah.
You can't do that, honey. You will. If you can't swim, you will drown.
Yeah.
So tackling generational trauma doesn't mean that you have to uplift every single family member and be the single-handed reason and facilitator of healing in your family. It means taking responsibility for what you can, taking responsibility for the things that are of you, right? Like there are some situations that you have been created that have resulted in your trauma, that have resulted in the way that you are. You take responsibility for your own piece. Yeah. You take responsibility for that
your piece.
And stop dragging yourself down with all of these weights that you don't have the training or the capacity to hold. It's actually okay. Put them down just for a second. Not even just for a second. Put them down for a second. Feel what that feels like. I love the analogy that you used of breathing out. You guys have been holding your breath for a long time. Breathe, bro.
Yeah.
Actually breathe. So put that down for a second and then revel in that for a moment, and then consciously try to create more moments where you can emotionally put that weight down. Emotionally remove that weight from your shoulders. It might even be like guided meditation and stuff like that, where you actually breathe, because genuinely these stress and guilt can have like physiological impacts on the way that we even carry ourselves, like hunched over, eye contact, stand, like good posture, all that kind of stuff. Sit down for just a moment, maybe 5 minutes every single day. Focus on breathing, focus on existing, focus on being. Put the weight down. You cannot carry it alone. And really, like, again, invest in community. You're not the only one going through this. I remember so many times where we would come together, I'd speak to Courtney about it, or I'd have conversations with some of my other friends, or we'd come together in like girls groups and be like, damn, my family wilded. Oh, yours too? Oh, yo, we're all going through it. But simultaneously putting down the weight with other people makes you realize that actually this burden was not meant to be carried alone.
Come on.
And that many people have been carrying it alone, not realizing that there's so much profit in shirking off the weight of responsibility in community. But yeah, that's what I say.
That's so good. That's so spot on. I think the only thing that I would add is oftentimes the guilt that we feel is because of it's kind of like a survivor's guilt. Like if I put myself first and I actually escape from this situation, there are going to be people who my responsibility is just going to fall on, especially when it comes to having younger siblings. And as two people who have younger siblings, I think it's important to Well, I guess everyone who is an eldest daughter may have younger siblings, Courtney.
Yeah.
But but like when it comes to our younger siblings, I guess the guilt is, you know, it's almost like abandoning your children. I think it's important to and this is where you can take a leaf out of, I guess, the parenting books, which is that you cannot control everything. I think as eldest daughters, there is this desire to control our siblings or control their lives or the lives of the people around us, because we feel as though we are this great operators who are organizing everybody into the perfect life and into keeping this perfect balance of peace, even if it's at our expense. If everybody else is staying afloat, even if I'm sinking, it's okay, because this is my new role now. And the guilt can often be, if I stop doing this balancing act, if I stop, you know, helping my siblings with their homework, or if I stop giving the money towards the bills, these lights are going to go off. They're going to get hungry and they're going to die. And there's always this kind of like, if I stop, even though I don't want to be in this position anymore, if I stop, things are going to go, they're just going to finish, right?
Yep.
One thing that I had to learn, especially in relation to my relationship with my younger sibling, was I actually cannot control the outcomes of your life. And as much as that makes me uncomfortable, because I want to ensure that you do not live the life that I did, or you do not experience the same pains that I did, rather, even when it comes to my parents as well, as much as I really want to be there with you and I want to make sure that you are happy, and even through all the pains that you have gone through as parents, you still have moments when you laugh and you can still say that you're proud of me and all of that. I actually cannot determine the entire outcomes of your life. I cannot determine how you feel. I cannot control that. And oftentimes I had to remind myself, because I would often be like, oh, I need to be there for so-and-so. Like, I need to be there for them. And it's like, you even being there for them in your present state right now is not helpful. It's not helpful to you, and it's not helpful to them, number one. Number two, you being there does not guarantee that they're actually going to be okay. And sometimes there can even be this guilt of, it's like how parents feel like, oh, and this is why I say this is a leaf we can take out of parenting books. It's like, your parents can only guide you, but even at some point they have to take their hands off of you, and you have to figure it out. And sometimes we experience this guilt with our siblings, and we begin to infantilize them because we don't want to take our hands off of them.
So true.
And it then becomes disappointing when they start being like, yo, I am my own person. Or, you know, hey, you're trying to control this too much. Or I know in one season I was dependent on you, but now I want my independence. And it feels to a degree like betrayal. And it feels like you're then losing your identity, because it's like, my whole identity has been mothering you. Yeah. And now you don't need a mother.
Yeah. God, yeah.
You know, that's something I went through personally, and that can breed feelings of resentment in itself. But also I think it's important to realize that guilt that you're feeling because you don't want to leave anyone else behind, at some point you're going to have to take your hand off this thing anyway, because it wasn't yours to carry in the first place, number one. And number two, at some point it's going to want its independence from you, whether that be your parents, you know, going on and pursuing the rest of their lives. And oftentimes with parentification as an oldest daughter, your parents have already taken their hands off of the situation. It's you who has your hands on the situation, trying to hold it all together. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot control any of these outcomes. And so even if you do feel guilty about the fact that, like, oh, but I don't want to leave people behind and I don't know how they'll fare without me, you're not God. Like, you actually cannot have this God complex about you that I've been holding this family together for so long. And this is why the faith element was a huge one for me. One of my friends came up to me. She was like, Courtney, you are not God. Like, the same way that God has been preserving you and no one's had their hands on you, you have to trust the fact that if you take your hands off this situation, God is going to preserve that.
Yes.
There is no way you can start playing God in this situation and thinking that, well, if I take a step back, everything is going to crumble. No. Life is going to figure it out. God's going to have their back. Like, you actually have to take a step back and remember that the same way you've been carrying yourself through life independently without anybody putting you first, if you stop making them first in your life, they're still going to be someone else's priority, and their survival and their provision and their joy and their future is not in your hands alone. You are just a part of the picture. And that's a flip side that we haven't really talked about when it comes to eldest daughter syndrome, which is you become a bigger part of the picture than you actually are, which is why I love that you brought up about the generational trauma and the generational curses. Is I know we're in the time of romanticize your life, main character energy, and, you know, putting yourself first and all of that. But baby girl, you are not the whole picture, especially in everybody else's life. And I know you've had a lot of weight and responsibility put on you. But once it's like when, like, you know, when, like, okay, you are living your life, right? And you've succeeded or you failed, whatever. But your parents want to take all the glory for everything you've done. And it's like, you were just a part of this.
Yeah.
You know, I had my friends, and you were a big part of this. You were the foundational part of this, but I had my friends, I've had my teachers, I've had, you know, the people around me have given me resources. We've got this online community. I've got my businesses. It's me. Like, I've had a huge part of it. Jesus, like all of these things. It's like, you're just a part. But to your parents, it's like, but you've been my everything, you know? And it's like, yeah, but you were just a part of this picture. And a lot of us as eldest daughters may get into this trap of feeling like, I gave my everything for this. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you were just a part. You were just a part to play. Your siblings had a part to play. Your parents have a part to play, not just in the mess, but also in the survival and in the preservation and the persevering of your family unit. It's not just all about you. And because of that, once I started to realize, oh, I'm actually not the one who's keeping my sister alive. I'm actually not the one who's keeping my mother alive. Like, you know what? If I took my hands off this thing, they're actually not going to drown. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's actually not me. And sometimes we can get this hyperinflated sense of just how much we are doing. And don't get me wrong, you're probably doing way more than you should be doing. And you're probably doing a lot. And it seems to be consuming all of your emotional and mental capacity and physical resources as well. However, you're just a part of the picture. And sometimes that's a hard reality to sit with. But I think it's the most liberating reality to sit with. The fact that if I leave, this thing will not crumble to the ground. And even if it does start breaking apart, someone's going to have to find the super glue, and it's not going to be me.
And it's absolutely not you.
I do think that the guilt that a lot of us feel is like a survivor's guilt. And the more we research into survivor's guilt, the more I'll have to say. But I do
She said addendum, appendix.
Just a note to self. But I do think that survivor's guilt is something that we need to overcome. Number one. Number two, our siblings, they will live without us. I can guarantee you they will live without us. And the thing is, what's so beautiful about that is it allows you to step into a role. And I think I wrote about this briefly in our book, but like it allows you to step into a role of actually developing friendship with your siblings, which you probably haven't had up until this point because you have been their parent, and it hasn't left room for friendship. And then growing that relationship now where you can actually be friends, you can actually be a confidant, you can be an encourager, you can be somebody who is let into their life, and you can see them as a person and as a personality and not just a responsibility and a burden, completely changes the relationship, and it brings a beautiful dynamic to it, which oftentimes you cannot see. And I do think if it does, come with, well, my parents feel like I've betrayed them, and they'll have to get over it. Because one thing, no, they'll have to get over it. They'll have to get over it. Because I love that you brought up about us one day being parents. I think one thing that is so sobering about knowing that one day you're going to be a parent is that knowing that you cannot blame this person. You actually cannot blame your child. You actually cannot blame the person who you chose to bring into the world, right? And obviously we know there are so many different circumstances and situations which bring people that people bring children into, and sometimes it is not by choice. However, for the majority of our parents, it was by choice, let's be real. And so I do think it's important to have a good sit down with yourselves. And this is why I want more people to do more work when it comes to actually talking and supporting parents past the infant stage, like past the whole, you're about to have a baby, here are books about how to have babies. And it's like, no, I also need us to write books about raising children that have cultural context. And I need us to all get into communities which actually help us, and hopefully will be that generation which help us past the point of our children turning 5 or whatever and trying to get them into good schools. How do we actually parent these children into adults who are whole and happy and have good relationships with us as their parents, right? Having that realization of, you know what, someone's going to be my whole responsibility, and we cannot afford to drop the ball on that. We will drop the ball in certain aspects. We're not going to be perfect parents. However, we are going to damn well try.
Absolutely.
And we're going to try hard. And that's the commitment, to keep trying. And eldest daughter syndrome and I guess parentification is when your parents kind of lifted up their hand and been like, I'm so tired, I don't even want to try. And that's what feels like the betrayal, right? Hopefully we won't be those parents.
Hopefully we won't.
But we'll be here to support each other to make sure we don't become those parents, for 100%. Sure. So on that note, sisters, we hope that you have enjoyed this episode and that you actually plug into the sisterhood so that we can all do this life thing together.
So much more fun, man, when you got people on the road with you.
I know that's right. So sisters, if you want to plug into the sisterhood, subscribe here on YouTube. Follow the podcast on all podcast streaming platforms so that every time we upload, you get a little notification that says, hey, they've put up an episode.
Yep.
Every Sunday, baby.
Absolutely.
Every Sunday. Ooh, child, every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday.
It's been a long
years,
baby.
It really has. But you know what? We give God all the glory. But yeah, make sure that you follow and subscribe and all of that jazz. Make sure that you follow us on social media. It's at To My Sisterhood, literally everywhere. Everything. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. Find us at To My Sisterhood. Come and enjoy the conversations and the content, and then come and meet some of the girlies as well.
For sure. And make sure that you follow our individual journeys as well. The lovely at CD Boateng. She's got a wealth of content and she's really giving us digital nomad. She's actually just returned from her Italia.
This morning. This morning.
She's just returned from her Italian leg and she will definitely
courtesy of my sugar mama. Let's not ignore that fact. Just to let you know, you can't have my best friend, but she paid for me to go to Italy.
I'm screaming #flued out.
Yes, not by a sugar daddy. No porta potties over here.
I'll bang it up.
We need
sorted.
We need to normalize that.
That's an after hours conversation because what the sisters are doing for money. I'm out in Dubai. I said no, God, wrap it up.
Wow.
Wrap it up. After hours conversation, we'll talk about that, sisters. But no, we need to normalize like splurging on our friends and stuff like that. But anyway, sisters, you get it. Follow the babe.
Yeah.
And also follow me at Renee Kapiku.
Yes.
And of course, if you haven't signed up to the mailing list,
it's you that you're doing at this point, actually. Really and truly.
It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. I don't want to be in the position, especially with everything coming up in 2023. Yeah. This is the last quarter. This is the last chance to get yourself together. Okay?
Crazy.
So you wrap it up.
There was a question that somebody asked me recently. Is there going to be a Vision 23?
We're going to park that for now. Because there's a lot
going on.
Yeah, we'll see. Because there's a lot going on. Because you guys really be forgetting that, you know, there's experiences to be had, international experiences coming up. The book is coming out, and I think that necessitates a get together. So I just want to say, this is your last chance to sign up to that mailing list.
This is my last
We will let you, if you want to know about vision,
that is my
have the vision.
My last chance. My last chance. What's the rest? It's just one last chance. It's one last chance.
That's the octave.
One last chance. Oh. Oh no. Oh jeez. Oh
no, we need to wrap up this episode.
Oh my god.
To wrap it up, guys.
It was great. It's a real time. God bless you. No, but the thing that's making me laugh, there's somebody listening to this that doesn't have a clue what we're talking about, and you need to get on TikTok.
You gotta put the video in.
This is the last chance and then I'm finished.
You're right.
This is the last chance and then I'm finished. This is the last chance.
Did you see the one where the girl was like, when you saw that the Proverbs 31 women woke up early, but you keep snoozing your alarm? Whatever.
We spend all of our free time on TikTok.
Oh my god.
We're boss babes that do self-development.
Our current fave is the guy that keeps us on to into High School Musical songs. That's my current favorite. Oh, that one last chance thing is actually.
Do you know how funny that is?
Sorry, no, we're closing out the episode. I don't even think the theme tune
Guys,
is long enough.
mailing list below.
Just sign up,
sign up.
tubersisters.com. Thank you.
Peace and love. Have a great week.
Woo! Cheerio, glow and grow, as they say.
Nah, okay, yeah, do that thing. Be going. Glow and grow.
Bye.